Hey, my name is Enda Murray and I'm the director of the Irish Film Festival. I'm delighted to be joined tonight by Paul Kennedy, the writer and director of Dead Man's Money, and by Pat Shortt, who plays the part of Old Henry in the film, and a man who needs no introduction to Irish audiences, but I'll give him one anyway. Paul and Pat, to Fáilte Row, you're very welcome to the Q&A. Paul, can I start with you? Just I'm interested in how the film came about. You mentioned it was very quick, the whole thing.
Yeah, it was. So I was actually in LA at the time. I was at a film market, and I remember it because it was Halloween Day. And my producing partner, Aiding, who produced the movie, she called me and she said, Northern Ireland Screen have asked us if we've got any films that can go quickly. This was at the end of 2023 when, I don't know if people would remember, but there was two pretty significant strikes that year. There was the writers' strike and there was the SAG actors' strike. And they were both in America, but they kind of had a knock-on effect on the industry all over the world, definitely in the UK and Ireland. So people hadn't worked a lot that year. So Northern Ireland Screen asked us if we had any films that could go quickly. And we said, how quickly? And they said, before Christmas. This was on October the 31st. So we said, challenge accepted. And we just dove into the bins and we thought, right, what could we do real quick? And I had written a play called Henry and the Widow Tweed years ago, like 10 years ago or something. I was part of the new playwrights program at the Abbey Theatre in Dublin, and this play had kind of came about when I was on that course, and it had just sat in a drawer for 10 years. And then I thought, well, it's like 4 or 5 characters, it's all in one location. We could cast it pretty quickly. If we found a location, we could go pretty quickly. If we find a little bit of money, we could go pretty quickly. And that's what we did. So on October the 31st, 2023, the movie did not exist in any way, shape, or form. And on December the 5th, the cameras were rolling. So it was pretty quick.
That's incredible. I think that must be a world record. Certainly in Ireland, it's a world record for people trying to raise money.
If anyone's done it faster, let me know. Let me know.
And you mentioned about the Coen brothers, that you had that Coen brothers vibe of a man who makes a mistake and then it just keeps going wrong.
Not a lot. It's like that seems to be a sort of recurrent theme of the Coen brothers' work, is that you have a protagonist who makes one bad decision and then it just leads to another bad decision and another, and he just keeps digging a hole for himself and can't get out of it. So, but also just the tone of the Coen. Like when I was a teenager, I loved the Coen brothers movies. I loved, Blood Simple and Barton Fink and, Fargo when it came out, and I've always been a huge fan of theirs. And there's always, although the subject matter always seems to be serious, like in movies like Fargo, there's a real dark humor undercutting everything, and that's kind of what I wanted to bring to this as well. So yeah, I didn't set out to make a movie going, this is going to be like the Coen brothers, but it just kind of came around that way, and a few people picked up on it and mentioned it, and I thought, yeah, that is kind of that's kind of true. It was never part of the creative conversation with any of the heads of department, with the director of photography or with the cast or anything. We wanted it to be its own thing, and but yeah, it just kind of turned out that it wears its influences on its sleeve.
It's very funny that you said that it's dark humor, because I had a discussion with one of the team here last week where I described it as a black comedy, and she said, "What's funny about it?" I couldn't put my finger on it, but I did. Yeah, that is, you hit the spot there, like Coen brothers, and there is a black humor to it.
Well, that was the new.
How did you get involved in the project?
Sure, look, I had very little money at the time. And I got the call. And I jumped on it straight away because they were paying the check quickly. No, listen, Paul got in touch with me, and I'd worked with Kieran McMenamin before, and I saw the people that were involved and read the script. And you're right, the black humour. I'm involved in comedy in Ireland, and I've been involved in it for years, touring all over the country. But there is something about Northern Ireland dark humour, whether it's in Monaghan or Belfast or something like that, and it is different. And it's very funny, but very dark. And like that, sometimes you can't see it, but when you're familiar with it, it's very, very funny, you know. So I saw that in the script and loved it, and loved that whole approach to it.
Um, Paul, just about that's the look of the film. It was very interesting what you wrote there about that you went and looked at cameras and lenses. I was interested in that, and then yeah, what were you looking for?
Interestingly, it was, the movie is mostly interiors. The first 2 or 3 minutes of the movie is exterior. It's on a farm, and then we go into one location, and we're in there, and it's very claustrophobic. So we wanted to. My discussions with the director of photography weren't so much focused on the look and the tone of the thing. They were focused on how can we keep this visually interesting for the audience, because lots of the movie is two people talking to each other. So, when you've got two actors talking to each other on camera, it's usually a two shot, what you call a two shot. So we're like, how do we keep this series of two shots interesting? So we had to do a deep dive on the history of the two shot, really, and how to use it, as effectively as possible in the right places. Like, for example, this is very technical and very, boring, but whatever. There's a
Not for me.
if you're shooting a scene that's supposed to have a sort of conspiratorial nature, you can do what's called French over. So if it's, let's say there's two guys sitting at the bar and they're talking about killing somebody, which people have seen the movie now. So if you film it over their shoulders from behind, it's supposed to subconsciously give the audience the feeling that they're listening in on something that they shouldn't be listening in on. So we were very conscious to go, okay, well, we'll keep that two shot, those French overs, for that first scene when Kieran asks Jared's character straight up, I want you to kill her for me. And it was things like that, and just trying to really keep it visually interesting. And I knew that when we would get to post-production and when we got into the edit suite, we were working with a really good colorist called Mal Campbell, and I knew that I kind of entrusted the look of the thing into his care. And my only note was dark. Just go darker as far as we can, And Mal had this great idea where, because we start exterior and we move interior, he wanted the picture to get gradually darker and darker and darker as the characters, embrace these darker and darker actions. Like, never forget that this is a movie where it's funny, but this is a movie where a guy punches a woman in the face and throws her down the stairs and kills her. It's like it has its moments of extreme violence, and he wanted the coloring to really reflect that descent into darkness, which I thought was a lovely idea. So by the time we get to young Henry's lowest point in the movie, when the lights go out and there's a power cut in the bar, you can barely see anything, and it's pretty much just lit by candlelight. So yeah, it was that was. They were good conversations to have with really good creative people behind the scenes that don't get enough credit.
Mm.
Very good. Pat, I was going to ask you, like you mentioned, you're very well known for your comic work, but you've won an IFTA for Garage and for your portrayal of Jodie. What's it like? Does it ever get frustrating in terms of doing acting? It's a job, and this is what I would imagine that like you're an actor. That's what you do. But does it ever get frustrating when people will always expect you to be funny?
Yeah, it can be a problem with being a comedian that you get pigeonholed, and I'm lucky, I suppose. I've gotten the opportunity to do some straight films. Garage being the first one that kind of changed all that for me, but like I've worked with various different directors of different backgrounds. I loved working with Paul because he's an actor himself originally, and I think it's great when you work with a director that understands actors and is not constantly. Well, he's got the mix of both, working with the technical side of it, but also working with the cast and looking for those dramatic scenes. I mean, I remember I produced some TV shows and worked with different directors, and some people come from an editing background and one thing or another, and they get very caught up with the technical aspect and nearly forget about the cast when the cast is the one thing that's going to be on the screen. And that's what was great about working on this film. That the cast were allowed to do their thing, if you know what I mean, which is perform, which is what we do. And I know I deviated slightly from your question there, but I think it's important that at the end of the day, whether you're doing comedy straight or whatever you're doing, you're acting all the time. And
Very good.
I think it's forgotten with comedy because people are laughing and enjoying it. They forget that that person is actually acting, performing that piece.
Paul, you shot the film in Newton Ards. You mentioned that there were a few people walked in for a pint and ended up as extras. How was that experience?
I mean, it was great. So we had a great production designer on this movie that we've worked with a few times before, a guy called Keelan McRoberts. And it was actually him that found the location. He says, there's this bar I know in Newton Ards, and I think it has everything that you need in this script. So we went to look at it, and it has a front section and a middle section, and it has a back section with a pool table, and it had a big keg room that we could shoot in, and it had an old, attic upstairs, which was kind of out of use and had a lot of junk lying around. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. So we said to the guys in the bar, can we shoot in here? And they said, yeah, but this is a working bar, so we have to keep it open for the punters because there's people in here drinking every day. There's only a handful of them. Like, there's not, it's not jam packed, but there's maybe a dozen people that sit drinking in it every day. So we were like, okay. So we thought, if we shoot in the back bar, you can keep the front bar open, and then on the days that we shoot in the front bar, you can put all the punters into the back bar, and they can drink in there and watch the football or whatever. And they said, okay, that's great. But of course, it led to its problems, where not problems, but funny instances where you'd be shooting a scene and then a door would open and some random guy would be standing there with a pint in his hand, and you're just going, this is hilarious. But then the guy that owned the bar, we said, we've got to give you a cameo in the movie. So he's in the scene where the girls are singing the Parting Glass. He's one of the guys sitting watching very studiously. So it's good. And those girls, by the way, this is very, not very interesting, but just a mildly interesting tidbit. I saw those girls busking in Belfast years ago in Cornmarket, and my daughters were with me, and my daughter said, Daddy, those girls are cool. They're like punk chicks. You should put them in a movie one day. And I said, I will. And so we got them into a movie. They're a band called Dea Matrona. They're very good. I was glad to get them in. They were great.
Pat, we lost John Kenny last year, and I just had listened to a little story you told on the Late Late about banshees, and I just loved it, the idea that. Do you want to tell it? Yourself and John appeared in Banshees of Inisherin. You told a lovely story.
Well, I think it was one of the, like, we would have been known as the Unbelievables. 20 years since I worked with John, 25 years actually since I worked with him. So it was that long ago. And like Brendan Gleeson would have been a big friend of ours back in those days, coming to the shows with his dad and his brothers and various other people and so on and so forth. And Martin, of course, would have come to the shows in the past with Johnny's brother and that. So when we went to shoot this particular scene, which Martin had, he had written it really for the two of us because he liked, it was a kind of a double act piece, the rhythm and the way the dialogue was going to go and everything. So he was very keen that we, do it right. And it was a kind of, so I think it was Colin Farrell was coming into the bar and chat to me, and John was the barfly at the other side, and then me and John got into trying to explain to him that what he should back off and all this kind of stuff. But it was great. It was a funny little scene, and it was just, I noticed, normally when you're shooting a scene, and if you've shot someone who's been in a scene before, they'll all feck off back out to the green room to get a coffee or something and go away, But I noticed behind the camera and the monitors, there was filling up with all the crew and cast and Brendan and all the rest of them that weren't in the scene. And they came in to watch the Unbelievables in action again, which was really, really nice. It was cool.
It's a beautiful story. Paul, I was going to say, what's your best memory of the shoot?
Oh, that's a good question. So I'll tell you something that I did on this shoot that I've never done before, but I thought it might be a nice idea because the cast and me were working together so closely. I picked Kieran and Judith up from their hotel most mornings, and Pat some mornings as well, and drove the cast to set myself, and then because I was picking them up in Belfast and driving them out to Newton Ards, so we were driving at 6 o'clock in the morning and just telling stories and having a laugh and listening to the radio, and it was just a really lovely way to start the day. So that's something I've never done before. I've always, you usually have a driver take you to set or whatever, but I thought I'll drive and I'll pick the cast up and I'll be their driver, and we'll talk about the scenes for the day and everything. So that's what.
I think that the first morning Paul picked me up, I didn't recognize him in the car because he was sitting in the driver's seat. I think I said, "What's he like?" He said, "Who?" I said, "The director." "That's me." "Oh, how are you?" The last person I expected picking me up in the morning was Paul.
There you go.
That's very good. That's very good. So, Pat, what are you up to at the moment? You're down in Limerick.
Well, I'm putting a new live show. We were touring out in Australia earlier this year in April, May, and we had a great time, myself and my daughter Faye. So that show has come to an end. I just finished a shoot in Japan there last week, and we're finishing this show now, which is touring in October. And there's a young director I've been working with, I suppose, for the last 4 years. I did a short with him last year, and I'm so delighted for him. He's just been signed up out in the States. He's just sold the script for a stupid amount of money, and we're shooting the first film. He's in February in Ireland, so that's very exciting. I'm looking forward to that.
Brilliant, great. And Paul, well, you're a busy man.
Yeah, I've been filming series 3 of House of the Dragon since March, I think. So I've finished up on that in a couple of weeks' time. So I've been acting in that for a while, and then we have another movie coming up in October, and we're just delivering a movie. I produced a movie with Danny Dyer in it, which we're going to release next year. So that's a really good movie, and yeah, I'm just putting slates together of stuff to produce, and trying to write bits and pieces here and there when I get a bit of free time, and just loving life, Enda, in Belfast, just walking my dog and shouting at my kids and being angry dad.
Good man. Yeah, I'd love to come and join you next August. I think is the Fla's coming to Belfast. So that's on my calendar. It's on my calendar. Look, Pat and Paul, it's fantastic to chat to you, and I could keep going, but we've got to stop because of the clock. But good luck with the with Dead Man's Money, and good luck with the rest of the all of the projects you got. And thanks a million, Pat, for all your bringing us pleasure down through the years, and yeah, remembering John. All the best. Slán agus beannacht.
So that's